I bow to that infinite one as my Guru. And I bow to him in all of you. Because when your heart is in him, he lives with you. He lives there where people invite him. But how can he go into your heart if you keep him out? There's a very interesting saying here of my Guru's in Conversations with Yogananda. Master was having trouble with a certain disciple. He remarked, marveling one day, people are so skillful in their ignorance. Later he said, what a job you take on your hands when you try to help people. You have to go inside their minds and see what they're thinking. A rose looks beautiful when we see it standing in its vase. We tend to forget all the work that went into making it that way. And if it takes so much work to produce a beautiful rose, think how much more work it takes to produce a beautiful human being. This is something that very few people really understand, that at least I can say this for my Guru, and I presume it as being true for all great Gurus. It should be, and I can't see how it would not be, that they are there with only one interest. They want to help you to get out of this delusion or that delusion and all delusions finally until you can find God. And most people think that a master who is freed from ego is reacting to them as an ordinary human being. That isn't so. I've told you the story of one time when he was really scolding a woman disciple very severely. You'd have thought he was angry. There was one of the men sitting at the other end of the room, one of the monks. Every time he was striding up and down the room, every time he'd turn his back to the woman and only the man could see him, he'd break into a smile and sort of wink and then turn back with great anger. He had no anger in his heart. But sometimes if your child does something really wrong for it, like walk out into traffic, you've got to impress on him that he needs something, and better to be hit by your hand on his backside than to get knocked over by a car. And if you don't give him a little spanking, then I think you'll be making a mistake. Sometimes spankings are needed. Well, the Guru administers spankings in the same spirit. He sees all of us as just children. We're not his equal just because we can speak the same language and maybe older than he. The Guru is one with the infinite. You can't get older than that. And the point is that people tend to resist, and they're so skillful. I've always remembered this saying of his, people are so skillful in their ignorance. They find so many reasons to explain why it was right that they did so. There was one woman editor, not his chief editor, another one, and she used to inject her own thoughts into his words as she edited, and he didn't like her as an editor, but he didn't know perfect English, and he needed an editor. She knew good English, but she was not wise, and so he was not pleased with her. And sometimes he would tell her things that, after all, she was a student, if not a disciple, and so he tried to help her sometimes. Back, he said, within 2 or 3 days, I always knew that back would come a letter from her, 2 or 3 typewritten single-spaced pages explaining to me how wrong I had been. And maybe in her own reasoning mind, she was right, but she was wrong, and he could see that she was wrong, and he never bothered to correct her after that. When you justify yourself for what you are doing, I would say this is a pretty good rule. Whenever you try to say, well, I was right, that's probably when you were wrong. Watch yourself. You can't always understand the subtleties of the mind, but when you see a tendency in your mind to justify, that probably means that deeper in your consciousness is a voice saying, you shouldn't have done it that way. when you have wisdom, then you can see, and the first stage of wisdom is to be able to see that, well, people are wrong all the time in many ways. Why should I necessarily never be wrong? There's got to be something wrong with me for having that thought. And so be always willing to be wrong. I remember here in Calcutta in India many years ago, somebody would say something and I would try to apply it to me, and he'd say, well, why do you take it personally? I'm talking about, I would feel no, but it's good to take it personally. I don't want to be one of those people who sit there and smile smugly and laugh about somebody else's faults, as if because they're not present I can talk about their faults, but I don't have any faults. So the unwritten rules of conversation are hands off where those present are concerned. I don't want that. So if any fault is discussed of another human being, after all, I am that person, I am all people. And so I believe I was right. I still believe to do this, that if people are being talked about in such a way as to talk about their faults, I always want to analyze myself, not because I'm taking it personally, but because I'm thinking, well, is this something I could correct in myself? The tendency of most people is to say, oh, it can't be. My tendency, I think, I recommend it, because it's always, no matter what it is, look at yourself. This was one of the things that first brought me onto the spiritual path. I was honest, I was truthful, I was sincere, and yet when I would see dishonest, untruthful, and insincere people, I didn't say, oh, I am that, but I said, well, I'm like them, and they became like that. I could become that way. I must build up protection against becoming that way. I must watch my thoughts and make sure that they don't slip into that foolish attitude of egotism which thinks that it is always right. I know one thing, that when I was a child, I was very happy. And now that I'm very learned and intelligent and intellectual and can beat people in argument, I'm not happy. So I'm doing something wrong, and what is it? And if it isn't because I'm being untruthful, I know it wasn't. If it isn't because I'm being insincere, I know it wasn't. It isn't false necessarily, yet there's something wrong, and I kept looking. Instead of most people, oh, I can't be that, or it's certainly not that, I kept looking for faults, thinking maybe this one, maybe this one. And I would say, no, well, I don't see it, at least in myself. But this self-doubt was born of the fact that whatever it was that was wrong with me, I had to change it. And then gradually I understood. What I was looking for was God. I hadn't known it before. And what I was looking for in God was joy. And I had been seeking joy outside myself, not inside. And I thought, well, what am I? And what is God? And what is moral right and moral wrong? And I got there by thinking. That's not the way I recommend, but this was my way. And thank God I got beyond that. But I thought, well, God has to be, if we are conscious, then he has to be consciousness. If we can be conscious, there must be some consciousness on which we draw. And I see that some people seem to have more consciousness and some people much less consciousness. Some people are joyful and brilliant and wise, and other people are unhappy and stupid and dull. And I thought, well, thinking isn't going to make me better, because it hasn't helped me at all. All it's made me become is more and more unhappy. Therefore, if I can attune myself with him, if I can somehow open my mind to that infinite one and resonate, just like when you hit a note on a string instrument, or have the string instrument notes open and hit the same note on another instrument, the instrument will vibrate and produce the same tone. So when I can vibrate on the right tone, I will draw what I'm looking for. And I thought my job in life, And this is all I want. I want to vibrate in tune with wisdom, not lack of wisdom and ignorance. I want to vibrate in tune with that greater joy so that I may receive that joy. I want to vibrate with that aspect of it which gives wisdom and not ignorance. And that means I have to seek God. I didn't know anything about these things. I didn't know anything about religion. I thought religious truth would be found in science or politics or literature or music or all kinds of things I tried. And none of them gave me what I wanted. Worse still, I looked at the people who were expert in those things and I saw they didn't have what anybody wanted. They weren't happy people. They weren't wise people. I tried to find somebody who was wise. I didn't find anybody. And I was getting desperate. And then I thought the only answer is to become a hermit. And I read in a little book called The Short World Bible. It had excerpts from the different religions. And when I came to the excerpts of Hinduism, I saw there two things that resonated very strongly with me. One was this, that God is infinite. He is not just some sort of person. And I thought that has to be true. There are infinite number of galaxies. It cannot be that God is just some old man with a long white beard or a policeman up in a cloud waiting for us to make a mistake so he can throw us into the dungeon of hell. He has to be something infinite. And then another thing that I loved was that it said, if you want to believe, if you want to understand, you must experience. Don't just take anybody's word for it, no matter how wise he may be. You must drink at that same fountain. He can tell you where the fountain is. He can tell you if this fountain has pure water or impure water. But after he's done that, you've got to slake your thirst at that fountain. You can't let him do it for you. And I really loved that. And then I came upon my guru's book, Autobiography of a Yogi. I took the next bus after I read that book, 4 days and 4 nights to his feet and said, I want to be your disciple. But that's what it's all about, that when we can invite God into our hearts, his love is what we're seeking, his joy. Don't be satisfied with your ignorance. Ask yourself that simple question. Okay, I think I'm right. Everybody tells me I'm right. Tradition and society tell me I'm doing the right thing, but am I happy? If the answer is yes, fine. I had to say that the answer was no. Nothing that I could think to do, nothing that I could see around me that people were doing, nothing that I was doing made me happier. And yet when I was a child, I was very happy. What had gone wrong? I had lost touch with my own self. I had forgotten who I really am. These were the realities. I came from bliss and got involved in Maya. And people who live in Maya will tell you, it's very simple, you just go out and make $1 million or not $1 million rupees, that doesn't mean much, but billions of rupees, little crores of rupees, and then you'll be happy. Well, you go to the homes of these various rich people, if you get to have a chance to meet them, they're not happy. I've met very few rich people who were happy. The fact that I've met some made it clear that it wasn't necessarily their riches that made them unhappy. It was their attachment to riches. I've met some great yogis who were wealthy people because they were inside. They knew that was just, they had the karma to be rich, but that wasn't what they were attached to, and they had this inner freedom. That was their freedom, their joy. So, if you think that anything in this world, and this is what the world will tell you again and again, in the milieu in which I grew up, it was understood that I would take a job, I would get a good salary, I would build a nice home in a wealthy suburb, I would have a nice wife and nice children and nice friends and nice this and nice that. I came to hate that word nice because it meant such a compromise with beautiful, such a compromise with excellence, and such a compromise with perfection. I thought, I don't want this at all. And I knew that I would never have a job like that, but I didn't know what I was seeking until I finally, after lots of thinking, understood that it had to be God. And when I met my guru, I knew. He had everything that I had been seeking and had never found in all the people. All of them wanted me to follow a way that I knew would give nothing but what they had, and they were nothing. That I don't mean they were fools, I don't mean they were stupid, I don't mean it in a worldly nothing way, in a spiritual nothing. That when you don't have bliss, you have nothing. When you don't have that which is everything, you have nothing, because you have all that takes you away from Him. The goal of life is to find out who you are, and then to find that who, and to become that. There is no other goal to any human being's existence. But people are, as Master said, so skillful in their ignorance. They have so many reasons for not seeking God now, for not really doing the right thing. They have so many reasons for why they did the wrong thing, just like the reasoning of a thief who breaks into a car, or let's say and breaks in and steals something, and he feels quite justified. He says, well, that should teach them a lesson to keep their things better protected. This is ignorance. Ignorance will always find a way of justifying itself. So that if somebody murders somebody, he may say, well, the world's better off with such fools. He should have had a way to protect himself. It's his fault. Everybody thinks it's his fault. That's why I always wanted to say, well, could it be my fault? It wasn't usually, but it was worth thinking. Anytime you hear anything about anybody that is negative, stop a moment and see. Don't just think smugly, we're among friends, we don't have to talk about our faults. Think. Might you just have a little bit of a hint of such a thing in you? If you do, that's what's keeping you from God. You've got to begin with the knowledge that something's keeping you from that knowledge, that wisdom. So what is it? Once you realize that He is everywhere, and that if you open your heart to Him and ask Him to dwell in your heart, as this song goes, where He dwells, cool gaze. So where He dwells, cool gales shall fan the glade. Is that right? Or is that the Sandal version? I forget. Anyway, you'll hear the song, you'll know better than I do at this moment. But it's what I meant and it's what I've lived. That where He dwells, everything you want is with you. Joy to you.
Where He dwells, the earth in gladness puts forth sweet herbs, shading trees. Where He dwells, the earth in gladness puts forth sweet herbs, shading trees. Streams bound through summer meadows, fragrance blows on every